said, well, we'll give it a try. We'll give it a try for a year. We all knew you had differences of opinion, so we came to, sort of like Solomon trying to come up with a decision here. So we figured a year, you look at it. If you don't like it, if it's obtrusive and you want to get rid of it, you get rid of it. It's in your court. But it's an opportunity for them to come up with money that they will need. So,
Well said.
Thanks. Any further comment, or I don't know if the superintendent wants to make any comment on this, or other than the fact that you'll be the sign arbiter if it is approved, but I don't know if you have any comments. No.
I just would like to thank everyone for their very thoughtful contribution to this conversation. I think, as Karen Ericetti had mentioned, a lot of thought was put into this to involve the public. I'm very pleased with the public involvement and the consideration that has been given. I will be looking forward to developing clear guidelines if this moves forward for the approval of the signs, since I will be doing that. But I think those guidelines are contained in the sponsorship policy that you've already referenced this evening.
Any further discussion? At this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the pilot program for 1 year.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the selling by the Recreation Department of up to 35 sponsorship banners on the lower grandstand at Arthur Kenny Field, consistent with school committee policy and with the approval of the superintendent of schools.
I second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-1, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I just want to give one more plug to our Walk of Fame bricks that are on sale for the next 90 days. Please come by and grab one for $100. It's going to look gorgeous when it's done.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass out in a minute.
Let's move.
Okay, moving back to our agenda. On continued business, we have an update from the superintendent on our school building project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good night, everyone.
The deadline for the OPM applications to the town administrator was on Wednesday, November 24th at 11 a.m. There were 11 applications that were submitted for the OPM position. The selection subcommittee of the Secondary School Building Committee met on Monday, November 29th, to identify the short list of OPM applications that would move forward for interviews. And those interviews will be taking place tomorrow, December 7th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. Subcommittee members use specific evaluation criteria to rate each proposal, and the cumulative scores for each of the OPM applications by each subcommittee member was recorded, and the strengths and weaknesses were discussed. 3 proposals were moved forward for interviews tomorrow evening. I contacted those finalists to set up the interviews and answer any preliminary questions that they had. I also started to make reference calls on each of the firms. The town administrator contacted those firms that were not moved forward. I want to bring some other information to you that became available to me. Last Friday, after your school committee packets were sent out, I became aware of 2 situations. I received an email from Katie Timmons, who is our field coordinator. She indicated to me that the MSBA is sending Paul Folks, a project manager that handles OPM approvals, to the interviews tomorrow, so he will be in attendance. I asked her if we had done something wrong, and she said it's not out of the ordinary. If, in fact, a project manager can fit it into his or her schedule, they do try to attend these interviews. So it's not something that's out of the ordinary, but I didn't know about it until Friday afternoon. Second, the January MSBA OPM review panel will meet on Monday, January 10th. You may recall that they had not yet set their agenda meetings for 2011. We had anticipated that they would meet on January 3rd because they meet the first Monday of the month. Because of the holiday, they're now meeting on the second Monday of the month. So I thought that was good news. But the issue is that the MSBA wants all documentation for the OPM review by December 8th.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, I'd previously been told that it needed to be in about 2 weeks before the meeting, so that now I thought that we'd have another extra week, but that timeline is significantly shortened. But Katie Timmons assured me that one of the reasons why Paul Folks is coming to the meeting is to discuss the submittal process, because they are very aware of our desire to have our project on the January agenda for the OPM panel review. So I'm not quite sure what the discussion will be tomorrow night, and what Paul's going to tell us. But I was quite concerned that 2 weeks extended to almost 5 weeks of needing to get our information in. And I'm very concerned if, in fact, this project gets moved back another month.
There's no way we could get the paperwork done on the 8th, right?
Well, over the weekend, I worked on writing the narrative that
Right.
needs to accompany the OPM documentation. So all we really need to add now would be the narrative about the interview process that takes place. It's quite a lengthy document. What's also supposed to be included in this documentation is the negotiated contract, but that's where we may have some wiggle room. I don't know. I'm anticipating this conversation. But they are very clear that we had fully intended, when we submitted our RFS, we had indicated that we wanted to be on the January panel review. So this is not a secret.
So at best, we get it the January meeting, at worst, the first week of February meeting.
That's correct. But I'm anticipating January. I'm still hopeful, and I'm believing that that's going to take place.
So we would have to have the negotiation done by the 8th, so that you could submit on the 8th.
That's not possible,
Right.
as you well know. We're just going to be hopefully narrowing down. The SSBC members, voting members, were also going to attend the interview process.
Right.
And they will be deliberating once the selection subcommittee moves a name forward. That's what we're hoping. Chuck Carucci, the chair of the building committee, has asked to meet with me at 4:30 tomorrow prior to the interviews to really discuss this. And I had told Katie that I would be very happy if Mr. Folks could come earlier than the interviews, so that we can have this conversation prior to the interviews tomorrow evening, but I have not received confirmation of that request being satisfied.
So the interviews will be made and the decision made tomorrow night.
Well, the interviews will be done, and depending upon whether we have a quorum of
Oh,
the
right, okay.
SSBC, they don't have to be there. But an email was sent out over a week ago alerting SSBC members about tomorrow night and requesting that they attend.
And hopefully
And we have a meeting scheduled for the 14th, if there's no...
That's correct. We
All right.
do have a meeting scheduled for the 14th.
We'll need a quorum tomorrow night in order to be able to vote
Right.
and
That's right.
and accept.
And if we don't, we have a meeting scheduled for the...
And that means we move to February, likely.
Yeah, I would think so.
Well, I'm going to
Unless
give
we can-
Mr.
Right.
Folks all of this information and do my darndest to get it on the January panel
Because the
review.
good news is, we're still moving along, things are on schedule. We might lose a month, but
But I'm hopeful.
Right.
I'm going to be persistent about this. We've made it known from the get-go, so I don't
Even if
see
the
any reason
superintendent
why.
has to
We've
work Christmas
shortlisted
Day.
3 good firms.
Already happened.
3 very good firms.
And Mr. Bowers is, pleased with the firms we're down to, so I think,
Mr. Bowers did some pretty extensive review work prior to the shortlisting.
good.
He used all
His
of his
background in
talents.
this field.
One more piece about the MSBA. As I went through the OPM documentation that's required to go before the panel, as I looked through at the checklist, nowhere else but on this checklist, it talked about the authorization of the school committee regarding the secondary school building subcommittee, the RFS, and posting the RFS in the Central Register. So what I need to gather, and it's in our November 8th school committee minutes, so we did have this conversation, but tonight I'm going to ask for signatures that I can submit as Exhibit B, authorizing, indicating that the school committee authorized all of this to happen. The discussion did take place, and I have the November 8th minutes if you wanted to
Why don't you
review
just-
them.
you can just
I'll
pass
just
that down.
pass it around.
Okay. Great. Next, we've got, this is an issue brought up last meeting, the need to not switch the kindergarten time at the Hood School. Kathy?
That's correct. We had asked Principal Glenn McKay, to make sure that all of the parents had been contacted regarding not switching the AM session of kindergarten, which is a half-day session, to the afternoon. And he received 100% support from every parent in this AM kindergarten session to keep the kindergarten session in the AM for the second half of the school year. There's no budget implication. There's no reason that we could not do this. So I'm just asking that you support my recommendation to not switch the
We don't
AM
need to vote on
session.
this, right?
We do not need a vote. I'm just making you aware of something in case you
Okay.
get any kind of contact.
As long as all the parents are in favor, I'm fine with it.
We have 100%,
Okay.
and they all signed. I mean, I think Michael actually saw what went home.
Okay. All right, just a quick update, we have refreshed the middle school statement of interest.
Yes.
MSBA also.
What's required, what I've included in your packet was information that we recently received from the MSBA regarding refreshing any SOI that has not yet been approved or entered into the pipeline for approval. I've indicated all of the requirements that they've outlined, but the fourth bullet is most important. The MSBA requires the district to take new votes for the municipal governing body and school committee authorizing the district to refresh the FY 2010 SOI. So I'm requesting that the school committee take a vote tonight to designate me to move forward with refreshing the SOI for the middle school. Once this vote is taken, I need to request that the Board of Selectmen also take a vote to move this request forward so we can refresh the SOI.
And just to make it clear for the public, the reason why we're doing this, moving forward with refreshing, why we should do this, I believe, moving forward with a refresh of the middle school statement of interest with MSBA, is if MSBA only awards us a new high school project, we also want to have a middle school project in the pipeline, to continue in the pipeline for potential funding down the road. So this is I think it's a smart thing to do to protect ourselves, depending on what comes out of the feasibility study for the high school. Any further discussion on, questions on the middle school statement of interest refresh for MSBA? If not, can I have a motion to direct the superintendent to submit an updated statement of interest to MSBA for the middle school?
Move to direct the superintendent to submit an updated SOI for the middle school.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Bills and payrolls are
Done.
done. Minutes are none. Carl, budget update?
Yes, thank you. In your packet, you have a budget report for the month of November. And this budget report reflects some of the discussions we had at the October school committee meeting. Usually it wasn't October, it was 2 weeks ago, when Patricia Bullard came in to discuss some budget issues that she has been able to observe. This report does reflect some changes to the budget so that we can cover the expenses that she quantified 2 weeks ago. You may recall that she mentioned the need for 2 additional paraprofessionals, as well as a need to increase certain tuition lines to cover costs that she has identified. We have made those changes in the budget. We've also begun to have discussions with the principals regarding even a tighter review of expenditures for the rest of this year so that we can not only maintain solvency, obviously, but as much as possible to allow us to carry over as many funds as we can for FY12 because of the difficulties that we anticipate for next year. I've also mentioned in the cover note that the other item that we're looking at under payroll